sometimes when I feel like anxiety, or I feel like I'm being watched, or there's some kind of lack
Yeah.
feeling, and I'm really unsure how to deal with it then when it
Yeah.
really gets intense.
Yeah. So, what type of feelings do you have? You don't when you feel self-conscious when you're around people or when you people are looking at
Mm.
you?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
And what sensations does it create in the body? What
Uh,
happens in your body when that happens?
I think like anxiety in the body. Uh, sometimes I feel also like kind of a burning sensation in the solar plexus.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's related to that,
Yeah.
but that's something also I
Yeah.
kind of feel, and makes me contract.
And do you feel comfortable if we explore it? Like if we explore this subject in front of people, they can only hear you, they can't see you, and they don't know your name.
Yeah, sure.
And we can explore this, but just to also be aware that I'm not a trained therapist. This is all from my own realization and my own like exploration into life.
Mm.
So it's like we're just exploring, just simply
Yeah,
exploring.
yeah, it's fine.
So, so if you just shut your eyes.
Mm.
So what is the worst thing that can happen to you if somebody looks at you?
Mm.
What is your mind? Because your mind is obviously going into like fear, flight, and fear. So what's the worst thing that you can imagine?
Mm. I think it's and it's coming up in other times also, like I think it's like sided with attachment and like fear of reaction to, like, yeah,
Fear of what? Sorry.
not being reaction, like not being liked,
All
and
right.
like maybe also attachment, being afraid of disappointing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that now, how does that make your body feel?
Hmm. Kind of like the heart beats faster.
Yeah.
Uh, some, yeah, contraction, like tension and discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just allow that to be present for a moment. And no
Mm.
rejection of it, just allowing that to stay.
Yeah.
And just run the attention around the body.
Mm. Yeah, it feels kind of like I want to hide when
Yeah.
I confront it.
Yeah. And do you remember a time when you first started feeling this?
Hmm. I think it was when I uh, got a bit older, when I felt like when I started becoming more self-conscious and conscious of how people
Yeah.
see me, and it kind of like felt like I have to like adjust to other people and how they their opinions and stuff like that.
And do you like other people?
Yeah, I don't know how in what way you could describe it, but many times like feels like I want to please other people. I want them to like me.
So you want them to like you, but do you like them?
Yeah.
So your mind thinks positive thoughts about other people?
Mostly I kind of disregard many of the negative as less real, I guess.
What? I didn't understand what that means. You disregard what? Sorry?
I disregard like negative thoughts about people as less real than the positive ones.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you think of someone that you know quite well, and just anyone that comes into your head? Just pick one person that you know quite well.
Okay.
And just let them sit in your imagination for a moment.
Yes.
And what do you have lots of positive judgments about them?
Yeah.
And do you have lots of negative judgments about them?
No, not really.
Are you sure?
Mm. Yeah, maybe it's like I have negative judgment, but I see them as less real.
Right. And do you associate them as lower or higher than you?
Probably I mostly put people somewhere above me. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
So what your mind is doing is your mind works in opposites. So your mind works in, you associate them as something and you as something else. So your mind associates them as higher than you or them as positive traits, and then more than likely it will project the negative traits onto you. And actually everything that you see about them, everything you think and see about them, is only a projection of your own mind and doesn't speak at all about them. And everything that you see about yourself is only a projection of your own mind, and none of it's true either. So you actually never ever see someone. You see your mind's projection of someone. You never actually see the form the way it is. You see your mind's interpretation of that form. And so what your mind's doing is your mind is associating you as lower or negative. But actually, in a bizarre way, everything you think and feel about yourself, you'll also be projecting onto them. So you're kind of oscillating between roles. So when you see them as one of their negative aspects, you'll see yourself in a positive aspect. And you're sort of playing this game of scales with people. And none of it's true. But what makes it feel really true is the sensations that are arising in your body. If you had the sensations that you were better than them and higher than them, the sensations would be more pleasurable. But that's not the right thing to do. That's what positive thinking says is to do. The true freedom is the freedom from all cages of self. But if you had more positive, but you're associating with yourself a lot of negativity and a lot of positivity externally. And so you have to explore the feelings underneath what you think about yourself and see that they are also not true, that none of it's true. There's a part of you that believes these stories about yourself, believes that you're wrong, that you're not good enough, that there's something bad about you, and you believe that when that person sees you, they will see that as well. But actually everything that you project onto them and thinking that they're good and they're higher is your feeling and contained in you. So therefore, it's part of you. You're just projecting it outwards. So you also have those feelings about you. It's just that's the mind. What the mind does is it projects one half outwards and keeps half for itself. You are that, I am this. But they're your feelings. And when I say yours, I'm talking about the instrument, I'm talking about the robot. That's like, 'cause everything that the robot sees, so everything you see, is a projection of that robot's brain.
So is what you mean is like I'm creating this person's by my mind, or
Totally. Just like everything, it's not your mind. Who you are is that beingness that's beyond the mind, like ultimately. But we can say the word yours, but it's like what beingness is doing is it's using that robot to look at a world, but that robot creates that instrument. I don't mean to sound so bleak saying robot. That instrument projects the whole world. Everybody's world will be different depending on how that brain is interpreting. So your neighbour will be seeing the world completely different from you. The object, the colours, the people. You project everything you see in a person. You never see that person. You see your brain's projection of that person. You see that person when you don't see anything at all. Because that's who they truly are, and that's love.
so they're not really ultimately any external person.
There's no external person, ultimately. There's no internal person either. There is forms and energies dancing in this. And colours.
So how would one define reaction then? Reaction yourself in some way, or
You're playing in the robot, in the personal world, you're playing with yourself. You've made up them, and by making up them, you've made up you. So you've made up humans that are higher than you, and you've made up a you that's lower. So you've positioned yourself as lower than other people, but you will also position yourself higher than other people. But everything that you think of them in the positive, you also think of them in the negative, but it just weighs heavier in the positive.
Yeah, I've been doing also less like seeing people as higher than me because of many meditations and all that.
Yeah.
Because my judgments have kind of disappeared, got less in.
But remember to be honest with yourself. Like, don't try to you've got to there is a reconditioning that happens, but also keep being honest as there is anything. Because when I said, do you think anything negative about them, your face when you'd been answering questions had been non-responsive. You were just like yes, no. But then when I said, do you have negative thoughts about them, your response was this: no.
Oh.
No, you can't see it because you're not being recorded, so you can't. No one else can see it. But I opened my eyes at certain questions because I wanted to see your facial response. So make sure that you're being honest with yourself, and make sure you drop to the deepest level possible. Because the way that you really let go of judgments is by not lying about your judgments, and that's how they begin to dissolve, not by trying to teach yourself new judgments. So, but this is something you can do in your meditations, is bring someone to mind and just have an exploration and see what's there.
What's the best way to explore emotion? Because I have been doing that, but I always like find it not getting that precise as I would like to.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, the best way to explore there's no easy way to it. I mean, my way to exploring emotions is on the idea. Have you heard of chakras before?
Yeah.
So go into those chakra areas and see what you're feeling in those chakra areas, and you can use your daily problems, so something your mind's obsessing about or upset about, and you can bring that to mind, and you can have a look to see where that's activated in your body, and then rest attention there in that contracted area in the body. So you said like there was a burning sensation in your solar plexus when you, I
Yeah.
can't remember what I asked you about now, but you said there was a burning sensation. So when you feel that burning sensation, rest attention there and see what it's saying. Like try to go as deep as you can. Normally in the solar plexus it's a lot of feelings of powerlessness and lack of
Yeah.
choice and lack of control and feeling out of control.
Yeah.
And then you've got
It's true.
the lower stomach, it tends to be fear. In the heart area, it tends to be a sense of lack of love, of abandonment, of rejection. In the throat area, it's often that you can't express. There's anger.
Yes. Yeah.
And in the third, in eyes, you often feel this contraction of overthinking. So rather than following
Yes.
your intuition, you're following your thoughts, which you have been taught. So there's this contracted
Yeah.
overthinking area. And here often is just dead to people. It's just totally cut off. But this is an area of such light and love and like letting out. It's like where all the energy, like the energy circles in the body and it comes out of the head. Like the energy circles, and it's such a place of expansion and love and openness.
Is it like also a higher guidance? I heard like maybe something.
I'm not into the higher guidance thing. I'm into
Uh,
the like what I'm talking about in the moment is on the bodily level, but the way that I see the higher guidance is coming back to who you truly are, which is presence. And presence is actually creating everything, but it's not something higher and it's not something out of this moment. It's right here. It's that which looks out of your eyes, and it's that sense of being alive. And if I wouldn't call that higher guidance because it's not removed for yourself, but the reason that you don't feel like yourself and the reason that you are looking for it in the outside in something higher and something better is because on top of your true nature is this illusory person that thinks and feels and is looking in a dualistic world, in a dreamt separate world for freedom. Whereas your freedom is your essence. It's right here. The freedom isn't in time, the freedom isn't in a thing, it's in yourself, which is that sense of being that's always been there. When you were 1 year old, there was that sense of awakeness, there was that knowing of this. When you were 2, 3, 4, 5, when you were hurt, happy, there was always a knowing of the situation, so a consciousness of it, and a sense of being alive. That's the higher guidance, but it's not outside of what's happening. It's beautiful. It's total love. And it's not separate. Your true self isn't separate from anything. There is no inside or outside world. The inside and outside world belong in the thoughts and in the mind of the person. But you're something beyond the person, and it's found in what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's one thing for me too. Also, like surrendering to the flow. Sometimes I contract when I try to do that also.
Yeah. So at the moment, in your experiences, there is a consciousness of everything. Would you agree with that? That there is a consciousness of everything that's happening?
Yeah, I think I'm not really exactly clear on exactly how.
So what I mean by consciousness is that everything that's appearing to you is registered. It's known. So right now, the computer, there is a knowing that the computer exists. There is a knowing that the wall exists. Like there's a consciousness of it. There's a knowing that the sound of my voice exists. And that's always present, that consciousness. There's always a consciousness of your thoughts and of everything that's happening. So there's a consciousness of your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations. There's also a consciousness of what I'm saying and the whole entire room. Is there ever a time when you can remember not being conscious?
No, just like believing that I would be less conscious.
Yeah.
Like if I drink alcohol or something, maybe.
Maybe you're less conscious on the thought form, on the memory form, on the functioning form, but there is still a knowing of everything that's happening, even when you're very drunk. There's a knowing of lifting the beer, there's a knowing of walking along. Everything is still known. The reason it feels less conscious to you is because your motor skills aren't working, so your memory's not working so well. And you're mixing up the memory with consciousness. So
Yeah, I tend to do that sometimes.
yeah, this was a really confusing subject because you've always been taught that you're something moving in time. So right
Yeah.
now, you're sitting on a seat, and that's known. That's known. You're sitting on a
Yeah.
seat, like there is the sensation of bum on seat, and that just is known. There's also, if
Yes.
you touch your face, how it that's known, that's registered. And then you can think, oh, I'm touching my face, but it's also just registered instantly. This, or the breathing in is registered and known. Can you get a sense of that?
Yeah, and I can get like a sense, but it doesn't like stick
Oh yeah.
totally.
It's okay because actually it always is. It's actually you that comes in and confuses it. So it's not something that you need to stick, but it feels like you cap it and you lose it because you comes in and claims it. So right now, would you say that my voice is appearing in consciousness? Is my voice appearing in your consciousness? Let's put it like that.
Yeah, it's the same there. Like it's like both yes and no. When something comes in and say that takes claim of it, and also like something registers that it is in consciousness.
Yeah.
But it's more like registering. It is like in consciousness.
Yeah. And what about your wall now and the computer? Is that appearing in consciousness?
Yeah, it
And
kind of moves into the heart when it feels like it moves into the heart when I recognize that
yeah,
more and more.
yeah. And so are your feelings appearing in consciousness?
Yeah, now I feel
Yeah.
that it is.
And this is actually who you are, is consciousness. And consciousness isn't separate from all things. And that's the higher guidance that you asked about. That. And it's right here and it's immediate and it's non-separation.
And if you do something like you feel like maybe I should or shouldn't have done that, it's always that you do it right if you do it like when it appears in consciousness.
Yeah. You
And the
can't,
other
yeah,
ones that
it's what
you can
happens.
say stuff.
What happens is that when you act out of yourself, you're always acting with the idea of doership, so you always have the sense that you've done it wrong or right. But when you see that there is no individual entity acting, then it's all seen coming from a huge, vast emptiness that's non-controllable. It's total love.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah. Nice. And then when the personal stuff comes up, like earlier I was talking more about the personal stuff, and when the strong feelings come up, you can also work with that, because on the personal level, sometimes you have to tidy the cage and you have to tidy the person up too, but also listen to this subject, that you aren't a limitation. You are this boundless knowing that's totally empty and never affected, and yet it's everything.
And non-duality is like the most that brings that up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can imagine.
Yeah, mostly it's non-duality speakers, but other speakers, it's all breaking down all these titles. So, yeah. But also, I do talk about the person now a lot more, because I've begun to realize that if you don't talk about the person, then people try to use non-duality to avoid these strong feelings that you're feeling, but they need to be dealt with. When you have this strong anxiety that comes up in social situations, there needs to be a dealing with those feelings and those reactions as well.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise,
true.
you spend your life trying to seek to avoid that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, nice. It's very nice speaking with you.
Yeah, really insightful.
Yeah, and you can watch this back on YouTube because sometimes I speak quickly and I speak about a lot of things.
Yeah, covered a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, nice. Really
That's,
lovely to speak with you again.
yeah, you too.
Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.